Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. Season 6 is finally here, and in this video I'm going to go over everything that is coming in the Season 6 update. So, let's get started. So up first we have Nyx, the Queen of the Abyss, who is the new tank coming in Season 6. I already have a bunch of videos on the channel covering how she works, but I will briefly summarize her here. So she is a melee tank who punches the air, and she will send out kind of energy waves alongside those punches that give her a little bit of extra range, but you really want to get up close because that's where most of her damage comes from. Her alt fire is Rift Slash. This is a projectile that explodes on contact with enemies, terrain, or after traveling 25 units, and it does a little bit of damage, but the main feature is that it slows enemies, and also it stays in place after it explodes and pulses a few more times. Each of those pulses will also do damage, and they will slow, so a really powerful crowd control ability. Next up we have Abyssal Fortress, which is a shield that you can range deploy. So instead of putting it directly in front of you, like Barrack's shield, Fernando's shield, Atlas Wall, etc., you can actually put this one a bit further away, but you have to bear in mind that the farther away you put it, the less health it has. So it's important to find a good balance between distance and health. Next up we have Royal Presence, which is a very powerful ability. This summons a poison aura that will poison enemies within 60 units, and it'll basically stay attached to you. You can kind of think of it like Grover's heal radius, but with significantly less range. And also, the most important effect of this ability is that it will cause damage you take to be applied over time instead of a burst. So, let's say you take 1200 damage from Kinessa. Instead of taking that 1200 burst all at once, you'll actually end up taking 300 damage over 4 seconds, and so you have a lot more time to heal that back up. So, you'll still take the exact same amount of damage, it'll just be applied more slowly, giving you more time to react and giving your healers more time to heal you back, which can be pretty powerful. The final effect of this ability is that if you refire the ability to cancel it early, anyone kind of around your reticle and in range of the aura will be pulled into you. Basically like a kind of Makoa hook, or more closely resembling Seven's grapple when it was still able to displace people. However, of course, this is on a much smaller range, and it is also on a much longer cooldown, so it's not going to be nearly as scary as Seven's displacement, but it is still displacement nonetheless, and it is another powerful form of crowd control that this tank has. Her ultimate is Chaos Nexus, which is like Sarah's ultimate, but if it was attached to Nyx, instead of being thrown on a projectile. So you will pull people in waves, basically waves of displacement that are like sucking you in like a vacuum, and then on the final pulse, you will kind of explode, do a bunch of damage, and stun people who are pretty much right next to you. So on the PTS it didn't really work. Hopefully it works in live servers, I don't know yet, but assuming the stun actually does work, this is a pretty decent ultimate. Nyx's default talent is Show of Force, which causes Rift Slash to knock back enemies hit by the projectile. Bear in mind, this is the ability that slows people, so it'll also knock them back, and the resulting Abyssal Rift will last 1 second longer, meaning it'll pulse more. Her level 2 talent is Abyssal Breach, which causes enemies that pass through the Abyssal Fortress, bear in mind that's her shield, to be revealed, and they also take 10% additional weapon damage from Nyx and her allies for 3 seconds. So this is yet another one of those rare damage amping abilities, but it's really specific in the case in which it can be used, because it's not like a Tyra Mark, it's not like Torvald's Bubble. You have to have the enemies walk through the shield, which is a bit tough. It also reduces the cooldown of the shield by 2 seconds, which is certainly a nice little quality of life feature. Her level 8 talent is Subjugation. This one is really powerful. Royal Presence's reactivation now only hits the first enemy in its path, but its range is increased by 50%, and it now roots the enemy for 3 seconds instead of pulling them. Bear in mind, this is the ability that has the poison on it, it causes Nyx to take damage more slowly, and it also yoinks people in. So instead of yoinking them in like a hook, it'll root them instead for a whopping 3 seconds. That's a very long time. So very interesting talents. And of course, there are all these cosmetics that you can get for Nyx, which are pretty nice. Next up we have the event pass Into the Abyss, which has skins for 2 characters, pretty standard event pass. We have a Seraph skin and then the recolor of the Seraph skin, which do look pretty nice. And then we have a Sati skin as well as the recolor of that Sati skin, which, well, skins are subjective, so I'm not going to say anything. This is not an opinion video. We also have other unlocks, of course, like this Death Stamp, Spray, Avatar, etc. I'm going to scroll past these. You can pause the video if you want to look at them. They're just a bunch of cosmetics and a very big border at the end. Sadly, Trials of the Realm will be re-evaluated, which means it will not be released for this update, so no Trials of the Realm, no big quests for free crystals and stuff like that. Just none of these. Yeah, I'm disappointed too. For limited time modes this update, there will be a new one called Get Nyxed, and then the rest of the limited time modes will be made up of very popular limited time modes, all of which are listed here. You can pause to read these if you want to see which of your favorite limited time modes are coming back. Now for the biggest change in this update, even though it has a very small paragraph written about it, Payload is back. This is an old game mode, which I will have a kind of tutorial for how to play Payload coming out very soon, if you want to know the details of this game mode if it's your first time playing. But basically, it is a game mode that is quintessential to all hero shooters. You have it in TF2, you have it in Overwatch, and now we finally have it in Paladins again. Again, it got removed a very long time ago, but it is back, and it will be here for all weekdays in which weekend limited time mode is not active. So basically, from Monday to Friday, you'll be able to play Payload, and on the weekend, you won't be able to. Yeah, it's a bit strange, but basically you'll be able to revisit these old maps, revisit this old game mode, and you'll be able to have a blast while doing it. It's a very fun game mode. I enjoyed myself on the PTS, and I cannot wait to play more Payload. We also have some more cheaper skins coming for Koga and Vivian in the next update. We have Bloody Bakemono Koga and Retro Vivian. Now you have to bear in mind, these skins do not have custom visual effects, nor sound effects, nor voice packs. So it's just the skin with, a really cool looking redetailed model and weapons, and that's it. You don't get any other special effects, so it's not quite as exciting as some of the skins in the update and some of the higher quality skins we're used to, but they are still pretty decent skins nonetheless, and again, they're very cheap. And now finally we get to talk about why the Sati skin did not have a splash art, because actually, you're not going to see any of those splash arts in the game this next update, because they are removing splash art for skins to help with the visual clarity of the game. So basically, when you go to select a skin, instead of seeing the splash art now, you'll see the rendered view of that skin as if you were just playing with it in-game. So it is apparently to help with the visual clarity of the game, making it easier to tell which skin you're selecting, and which skin the enemies are using, and which character you're going up against, just all at a glance on the loading screens and the customization screens, etc. They're going for a more unified look, and well, people have varying opinions on this. I'm not going to give mine in this video. I'm sure you'll have that for me in the comments, but that is one of the major changes coming next patch. Also, you'll notice a UI overhaul for some of the menu elements, such as the profile and the store, to try and make the menus feel a little bit easier to navigate. And again, opinions on that vary, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comment section down below. Now, the Bounty Store and Marketplace are unfortunately being sunset, and this is something they actually made a separate blog post about, so we can really see in detail what their plans are with this. So the Bounty Store and Marketplace will no longer be available for purchases, the Bounty Marketplace will be shut down, so you'll no longer be able to exchange skins, and all Bounty coin transactions will cease. You will keep your Bounty skins, which you purchase through the Bounty Store, and then your duplicate Bounty skins will be dissolved into diamond troves, crystals, and gold based on the skins you owned. Past bounty skins will be available through direct purchase or chests, and then the remaining bounty coins you have will be dissolved into gold, boosters, and flare and style chests. And then for those of you who watch me over on Twitch, you might be concerned about Twitch drops. Well, those have been reworked as well. Each week they will offer 6 drops of 500 gold and a final drop of a flare and style chest, which that one is particularly exciting. And then they will keep the 4 hours per drop pacing, so 4 hours for each drop of gold. And then, after basically 24 hours, yeah, you will finally be able to get the Flare and Style chest. So, a lot of grinding on Twitch for the Flare and Style chest, but of course there are still drops, so that is very nice. Next up, let's talk about Ranked. This year they intend to have 4 ranked splits of roughly 3 months each. So this season, every season of the year will be a split, if that makes sense. And yeah, the skin you are grinding for this year is the Inventor Pip skin, which is an absolutely fantastic skin for Pip. You have to win 100 ranked matches, but this is across the entire year. So you have a year to get this skin. Plenty of time, I would say. And then also, they are distributing Season 5 ranked frames. This is based on the highest rank you achieved in Season 5. So let's say during the summer, you achieved the highest rank of Diamond 2. But then by the end of February here, you've decayed all the way down to Plat 5. Well, you won't get the Platinum border, you will get the Diamond border because in the summer, you reach Diamond. So, the highest rank you achieved in the year, and these borders, well, they're subjective. That's all I'm going to say. There's also the commendation border down here for players who received 500 commendations during Season 5. And then we have some other split rewards, such as a gold chest and a Doombringer avatar. Woohoo! And finally, we get to balance changes. Up first, we actually have some of the most important balance changes coming in Season 6. So first up, let's take a look at air strafing. Air strafing is getting a partial revert from 1200 up to 1650. What the heck does that mean? Well, it's actually quite simple. Air strafing is going to be faster now. So if you're in the air and you're going right, and then all of a sudden you want to make a turn left, normally that takes a really long time. It's really stiff. You can't really do that well. But with this change, it's actually going to be a lot faster now and a lot more fluid. And this really affects characters like Drogos, Seven, Maeve, etc., who want to kind of run circles in the air and do a lot of dodging while they're in the air. Yeah, this is going to make that feel so much better now. I played with it a lot on the PTS, I've made a lot of videos of it on the PTS, and it feels phenomenal. It even affects characters who you might not think it affects that much, like Koga with agility, for example. So this is a really good quality of life change all around for basically every character. Also, mid-air inaccuracy has been fully removed. There are a lot of characters who this won't affect, but there are still a lot of characters who in Season 5 had mid-air inaccuracy, such as Cassie, Barrick, Victor, Koga, etc. And so they are no longer going to have that mid-air inaccuracy. They can jump now, and their shots will be just as accurate. This is a major buff to anyone who had mid-air inaccuracy, just period. Now all characters will be on the same level when it comes to being able to jump, which I think is a really good change. We are getting 2 item balance changes. The first is to Guardian. It is now going to be more effective. Shields will be buffed by 30% at max instead of 24%. Kill to heal is getting a nerf, is going from 750 healing at max down to 600 health. Bear in mind, it is still going to be completely immune to cauterize, so you will not get this 600 healing cauterized, but of course it'll be 600 healing instead of 750, so it's a little bit less effective. Next up is one of the most controversial balance changes of the update. We are getting some new keywords on healer talents. What does that mean? Well, each talent is now going to be assigned a keyword. Curative makes it so that talent does 20% additional healing. Remedy makes it so that talent does 10% additional healing and 5% additional damage. And then Surgery makes it so that talent does 10% additional damage. So let's say I pick a talent that has Surgery on it. Every single thing that I do will do 10% more damage. My weapon shots will do more damage, but also any auxiliary ability that does damage will do 10% more damage. And so it's kind of a weird way to balance supports, and it's only affecting a certain amount of supports this update, I guess, as a trial run. So they're affecting Pip, Furia, Grok, and Grover. So 4 supports here. So again, to reiterate what these keywords do, Curative is the healing keyword. It'll do 20% additional healing. Remedy is the hybrid keyword, 10% more healing and 5% more damage. And then Surgery is the damage keyword, 10% more damage. So you can kind of guess where each of these are going to go for each of these different talents. Pip's Mega Potion is getting Remedy, that's the hybrid. Catalyst gaining Surgery, that's damage. Combat Medic gaining Curative, that's healing. Furious Cherish is gaining Remedy, hybrid. Exterminate is gaining Surgery, damage. Solar Blasting gaining Curative, healing. Grok's Totemic Ward is getting Remedy, hybrid. Spirit's Domain getting Curative, healing. Maelstrom getting Surgery, damage. Grover's Rampant Blooming is getting Curative, healing. Ferocity is getting Surgery, damage. And then Deep Roots, nobody cares about Deep Roots. So each of these supports also got some more balance changes to kind of balance out these keywords, and we'll get to those later, but some things are getting nerfed. In fact, most things are getting nerfed to compensate for the fact that all of these keywords will be giving just raw buffs. So let's take a look at those real quick. First up, we can check out Furia. Pyre Blade does less damage now. Pyre Strike will tick more slowly now, so it doesn't do less damage per tick, it just ticks more slowly, so still a net damage nerf. Kindle Soul does significantly less healing now, 850 burst with 340 over 2 seconds instead of 1000 burst and 400 over 2 seconds. And then Inflame is also getting nerfed, it now lasts 7 seconds instead of 8 seconds. Grok is getting some small balance tweaks. Lightning Staff will do 65 damage at base now instead of 70, it'll still ramp up, mind you. And then Healing Totem does 256 healing per second instead of 270. Grover is also getting some small balance changes. Throwing Axe, well, I say small balance changes, it's still a pretty big balance change. It does 650 damage at max range now instead of 750, which is a pretty big deal. And then Blossom does 75 healing passively every second instead of 80, and then the Big Burst does 600 instead of 650. And then the final support is Pip. The Potion Launcher does 570 damage now, and Explosive Flask does 145 instead of 150. I made a video about opinions. I'm not going to say any opinions here. You can go. I'll put the video on. You can go watch that if you want to see my opinions on it. I'm not going to say anything. On to an excellent balance change now. Androxus's Cursed Revolver is finally being removed. Flat out, doesn't exist anymore. Instead, it's getting replaced with Darkstalker. This is a new, to some, talent, because this was actually a really old talent way back in the day. So this makes it so that Nether Step now has 3 charges and is no longer linked. So basically, your Nether Step will work kind of like Vatu's dashes, where you just have 3 individual dashes, and they all kind of just have really low cooldowns and recoup separately, and you can use them separately, and there's a lot more freedom with that. However, on Twitter, you can see an official tweet from Paladins game where Kasumi will not be entering ranked, Darkstalker still has linked charges, and then specifically on the Nintendo Switch, Payload will not be available, and some rank descriptions will be incorrect. So it seems like Darkstalker won't be implemented properly in this update, which means basically I think Androxus is just going to have 2 talents for a little bit, Godslayer and Defiant Fist. Except Defiant Fist is trash, so you're basically going to see a bunch of Godslayer players, I think. Next up, Atlas is getting a massive base health increase from 3,500 to 4,000. It reminds me of the days when Barrack got the same treatment, and it was busted. Except Atlas is a lot more skillful, so maybe it won't be as busted on him. Azan is getting Tempering buffed, so it'll increase the base cooldown by 25% instead of 50%. So your abilities will still have a longer cooldown, it just won't be as long as they used to be. So this is going to be a change that'll make Tempering feel a lot better to play. And it'll actually be pretty darn strong, especially once you ramp that up with some Chronos. Barrack's Tinkerin is getting a massive buff from 550 damage to 660. It's a 20% damage buff, which is pretty huge, and so you're going to see a lot more Tinkerin this patch. Dredge is getting some really fun card changes. So Expansive Vault will now have a base duration of 2.5 seconds at level 1, and then every level you put into it will scale up by a further 1 second. So this will give you a lot more time to basically decide when you want to jump after exiting a shortcut and getting that major jump boost, which is pretty nice. And then Crow's Nest is also getting a knockback increase from 100 per tier to 150 per tier. So you'll be able to send yourself farther with Crow's Nest, and bear in mind this will also stack with the removal of mid-air inaccuracy and faster air strafing. So Dredge is going to feel amazing next patch if you're a Chad and you use Crow's Nest like me. Fernando's shield health on Aegis is being reduced from 5,200 to 4,900. This doesn't affect the other 2 shields, it only affects Aegis. They're trying to make it a little bit less valuable of an option compared to Scorch and Formidable, but I think you'll still see this a lot more. Inara is getting some pretty big balance changes. Stone Spear is getting its self-slow removed, so you will no longer slow yourself when you shoot. Earthen Guard and Mother's Grace are also getting some massive damage reduction buffs. So the base Earthen Guard is getting 5% additional damage reduction, and then Mother's Grace is getting another 5% additional damage reduction. So in total now, Mother's Grace will give you 50% damage reduction when combining these 2 buffs. Pretty huge. Kasumi's Yokai doll now requires a target before it can be fired. Basically what this means is you can't just hold down left click the entire game, turn the corner, and instantly start slashing somebody. You have to look at someone and have them be targeted. You actually have to see them inside of the little mark indicator, and then you can hold left click and start firing. So it requires you to actually lock onto a target before it'll start doing damage. It makes it kind of semi-auto. Not really, but it's a step in the right direction, I guess. Rom's Subservience is finally getting nerfed. Honestly, I can't believe it made it this far without getting nerfed, but it is getting its heal reduced from 2% max health down to 1.5% max health. So you'll still be able to do a lot of healing with Rom, but it's not going to be as crazy. He's not going to be the big off support that we know him to be. Skye is getting buffed, technically. I'm not doing a good job of making this a non-opinionated video, am I? She's getting 1 second cooldown reduction on hit him, from a whopping 15 seconds to a whopping 14 seconds. This is not going to fix Skye, but I appreciate the thought, I guess. Anyways, Torvald is getting a Giga Chad Mega buff. We might be entering a Torvald meta here, and I say that unironically. The shield is getting buffed from 2,000 to 3,000. Just give him 1,000 extra health, why don't you? So we have 6,000 HP Torvald at the start of a match now, before factoring in the health card, Veteran, Haven, and or Guardian. Wrecker will still shut down the shield extremely hard, as it always does. But this is a nice buff for our boy Torvald. 7 is getting a damage nerf. He is getting his burst mode reduced from 155 per shot down to 150 per shot. Sadly, he still has impeccable range, which is really what needs to be nerfed with the SMG, but at least he won't be as bursty anymore. And then finally, Ying is getting her illusion healing increased from 400 up to 420. The smallest buff. I don't want to see anyone picking Focus England's solo healer. You still cannot do that. This buff does not warrant that. Please, don't do it. You're throwing your gains. Anyways, we also have some bug fixes here. I won't read through all of them, but the most important one to address is Ray's chain heal is very, very buggy, and they are certainly working on it. So they fixed an issue where Ray's chain heal wouldn't bounce properly between allies. This issue is caused by last patch's buff to the projectile's speed, and has been reverted as we investigate the issue further. So what I imagine is they reverted the quote-unquote buff to make it so that the chain heal would bounce properly again, but I imagine they're probably going to fix the underlying issue and then restore the buff at a later date, so that way the buff works as intended and her healing is just better. That's the hope, but for now, yeah, you just don't have the faster projectiles anymore, and hopefully it should be more reliable, so Ray mains rejoice. But yeah, that is basically everything coming in the Paladins Season 6 Emergence Update. Let me know in the comment section what you are most looking forward to in the new season, and also make sure to check out the Twitch channel, Discord server linked in the description down below. Drop a like, subscribe, do all the things, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.